Right now, there is plastic inside your brain. Not in a lab dish, in real human brains. In 2025, researchers measured donated brain tissue and found microscopic plastic packed in at 7 to 30 times the level in the liver or the kidney, and the amount had climbed by roughly half in just 8 years. Your first instinct is quiet dread. Hold that feeling. Because the headlines screamed that number and then skipped the one question that actually decides whether it should scare you. So here's that question, and it is the whole video. These particles have now turned up in human blood, in the placenta, and now in the brain. What nobody has shown is what they actually do once they arrive, present or harmful. Those are two completely different worlds, and nearly every headline quietly treats them as the same one. Hold the question open a little longer, because the answer decides whether this is an emergency or just something worth watching, and it decides which of your everyday habits are actually worth changing. First, let's get the scale right, because it changes everything. Microplastics are fragments smaller than 5 millimeters, roughly a sesame seed shrinking down. But the ones that reach deep tissue are far tinier, nanoplastics measured in billionths of a meter. At that size, a particle can drift where a crumb never could. Your body has barriers. Some of these pieces are small enough to slip past them. This isn't only a brain story. Back in 2022, a study in Environment International detected microplastics in the blood of most sampled adults, in about 17 of 22 people tested. Small sample, early science, but a real signal. So the particles get in, they travel, and now they've been spotted in the one organ we protect most fiercely. The obvious question is whether that means damage. But before you swear off plastic forever and toss every container in your kitchen, here's the twist. The biggest source of what ends up inside you is probably not the one you'd guess. It's not the takeout box or the wrapper. To understand where these particles really come from, you have to follow them backward, from your tissue to your dinner table to your tap. Start with water. A 2019 analysis in Environmental Science and Technology estimated that if you drink only tap water, you take in roughly 4,000 microplastic particles a year. But if you drink only bottled, that jumps to about 90,000. Same daily habit, wildly different totals. The bottle you reach for because it feels cleaner may quietly be doing the opposite. Now food. Particles ride in on things we rarely suspect. Sea salt, shellfish that filter seawater, even honey and beer have all shown traces in testing. It's not that any single food is dangerous. It's that plastic pollution is now woven through the environment, so it shows up in trace amounts almost everywhere we look. Diversity in your diet spreads that exposure thin. But the sneakiest route isn't your plate at all. It's your air. Indoor dust carries plastic fibers shed from carpets, clothing, and upholstery. And some researchers estimate inhalation rivals eating as a source. Every time synthetic fabric rubs against itself, it sheds. You breathe some of that in while you sit peacefully on your own couch. The couch, it turns out, has opinions. Now heat. This is the one that matters most, so stay with me. When researchers microwaved plastic containers, a single square centimeter released up to 4.2 million microplastic particles and over 2 billion nanoplastic pieces in just 3 minutes. The same container used cold released a tiny fraction of that. Warmth loosens the plastic's grip on its own fragments. So the container was never really the villain. What you do with it is. Remember that, because this is the biggest lever you are going to get. There's also the slow shedding of everyday wear. A scratched plastic cutting board sheds fragments into your vegetables with every slice. A worn non-stick pan, a cloudy old reusable bottle, a chipped storage lid, all release more as they age. None of this is cause for panic. It's just a pattern. Friction plus time plus heat equals more particles. Remember that formula. So by now, the picture feels overwhelming. Water, food, air, heat, wear, plastic everywhere. If every path leaks particles, you might conclude the whole effort is pointless. That despair is exactly the trap, and it leads us straight into the single most important thing this entire topic gets wrong. Because there's a catch the frightening headlines almost always skip. Here's the reversal. Detection is not the same as harm. Scientists have found that particles are present in human tissue. They have not shown, in living people, that those particles are causing disease. The instruments got sensitive enough to spot the plastic before the biology told us what, if anything, it does. That gap is uncertainty, not proof. And uncertainty is not a reason to panic. The World Health Organization said as much in its 2022 review. Based on the limited evidence, it concluded there was no clear indication of a health risk at current exposure levels, while stressing how much we still don't know. Translation: this is real, it's worth watching, and it is not a 5-alarm fire, which means your energy belongs on the routes you can actually measure and reduce. So let's build your plan. Weakest lever first, strongest saved for last. Start with wear. Retire the scratched cutting boards and the flaking nonstick pans. Swap in wood or glass boards and replace cloudy old plastic bottles once they start shedding. You don't have to purge the kitchen in a weekend. Just replace the worn, high-contact items first. If this careful, no-panic way of looking at health is what you're here for, consider subscribing, because it's exactly what this channel does every week. Now lever 2, the air you forgot about. Ventilate and dust. Opening a window, using a vacuum with a good filter, and wiping surfaces cuts the settled fibers you'd otherwise breathe. A tidy, aired-out room does quiet, steady work for almost nothing. Lever 3 is your water, and it climbs the ladder because the numbers are concrete. Remember those 2019 figures, roughly 4,000 particles a year for tap drinkers versus about 90,000 for bottled. If you rely on bottled water, a simple filter pitcher for your tap is a reasonable, low-cost swap that targets a major, measurable route. And here's the biggest lever, saved for last, because it has the strongest evidence behind it. Stop heating food in plastic. Move warm or hot food into glass or ceramic before microwaving, and let liquids cool before they touch plastic. Because heat is the largest particle multiplier researchers can measure. This one habit targets the loudest source head-on. Simple, cheap, powerful. Now the honest costs, because pretending there aren't any would break trust. This science is young. Sample sizes are small, methods still vary, and much of the tissue work comes from deceased donors, not living, monitored patients. Anyone selling you a plastic detox supplement or a magic cleanse is ahead of the evidence. There is no proven way to remove these particles once they're in. So the doable move is prevention, not rescue. Focus on lowering intake through the measurable routes, and don't let a headline stampede you into extreme or expensive gestures. If you're pregnant, caring for young children, or simply anxious about this, the same gentle habits apply, and a conversation with your own clinician beats any internet spiral. Calm, steady reduction beats frantic overhaul every time. So, back to the brain we opened with. Yes, tiny plastic particles have been found in there, and no, that isn't proof they're harming you. And yes, you hold real levers over how much gets in. That's the whole honest story in one breath. This week, pick just one thing. Move your food out of plastic before you heat it. Small, measured,